We are now talking to Football Sapient owner and scouting consultant, John Vogel. Mr. Johnny Boy, what's up, man?
Oh, I knew as soon as I heard from you guys about, being invited back on the show that you were going to have a bone to pick with me. I knew exactly what it was going to be, and I'm prepared to take it. So
it's more his bone. I don't have that kind of criticism.
Well, the criticism is that there was a couple of players that you thought weren't going to be any good coming out of the draft, and my team drafts them, and they're pretty damn good. I'm actually. Yeah. Oh, here he goes with his stupid pump. He was very lucky to get him out. Oh, my God. Why do you pump? What is the point of pumping? This stupid – I'm not even going to say it on live radio because if I ever met Josh Donaldson, I'd say he's an idiot. He's pumping. And by the way, that was barely out.
Barely out. Wow.
He just got him with his stupid pump. Anyways, before we get into it, how are you and your family? How have you been since COVID?
Everything's been settling back in and, I finally was able to quit a day job and focus on doing football all the time.
Really?
So that's NFL Draft Blitz. I started with them back in August, and they've given me the opportunity to just sit back and watch football all day. And I put on a few pounds, but I'm feeling pretty good about it. And just trying to take in everything that's going on in the NFL and college, and focus on what's real, what's not. I have a lot more time now, which is great, to sit back and just kind of keep up with everything and put the work in. And it's been awesome, man. It's been awesome.
Well, we know you're a Tennessee fan as Alabama gets knocked off by your Tennessee. It wasn't a debacle either. I think they just completely outplayed Alabama in that game. And congratulations to you and your Tennessee team. What are they? Tennessee Tigers? What are they called?
Volunteers.
Volunteers.
The Volunteers.
I'm sorry.
Volunteers.
I'm bad with names, but the Volunteers. What's so funny? All these years with Tennessee, they're more of a basketball team than a football team. I don't know them as a football team more than a basketball team. Their basketball team's always in the tournament. Always in the tournament, and so I've always followed the basketball team, never the football team. So it's so funny. Ben was wearing the Tennessee Volunteers hat. I thought it was the Texas Longhorns hat, and he's like, that's the Tennessee Volunteers. I was like, oops. I mean, like, come on, man. I was so tired.
It's funny that you say that too, because 10 years ago, the Volunteers were not a basketball team either. That's something that Rick Barnes has really built there in the last 5 years, I want to say, since he took over. But, before that, they were not a team that was in the tournament. They were kind of a laughing stock when it came to sports in general. But, I think the athletic department there, they put a lot of focus into getting it right. There's been some growing pains. You can go back to the whole Philip Fulmer thing when they fired Jeremy Pruitt a couple years ago. There was a whole lot of stuff going on, but there's been a general, we want the athletic department to be better consensus from the university presidents, which has been great. So,
well, some Texas Longhorn hats are with a T. So
it's a similar T. I'll give you that. I think that the Tennessee
and their colors are similar too. Their colors are pretty similar too.
Yep. One's orange, one's burnt orange, as they like to call it.
Yeah, they're
orange,
similar.
What they call it. We're more of a straight orange.
No, but I mean their colors are similar. You know what I mean? It's orange, so that's why I thought it was the Texas Longhorns. But I was tired and I didn't sleep going in and obviously doing play-by-play for 7 high school or 10-year-old football games. So I was very tired. 10 hours of that crap, but nevertheless.
And Rick Barnes coached at both schools. He used to coach at Texas, now coaches at Tennessee.
That's true, too.
I know, it's crazy. Yeah.
It's crazy. But why don't we get into it? Because I want to get into the NFL, and there are 2 players in particular that play for my New York Jets that you weren't too fond of. You even said it coming out of the draft. You like Garrett Wilson. I know you liked him. You said he was the best wide receiver in this draft. But there were 2 other players that you were like, Breece Hall, you said that he has too much tread on his legs, that you don't know how it's going to work in the NFL. He's been beaten up a lot over there in Iowa, and you were wrong about that because a lot of experts now believe this guy by the end of the season will be a top 5 running back in the league. He's averaging 9.6 rushes a carry. I mean, it's ridiculous what he's been doing. the last 3 weeks. I mean, the Jets have moved away offensively with their wide receivers now, and they say, give the ball to Breece, let him catch the ball in the backfield, let him run the ball. He's going to run through them more likely than not likely. So you have him, and then Sauce Gardner, who you didn't even think he was the best corner in this draft. You were saying,
no.
So
no, I thought his length was going to get him in trouble sometimes, and I think he's put on some highlight things, which has been great. And we always like the highlight tape. We always like seeing that stuff on our social media feeds or whatever. And kind of under the surface, there's been a few bad plays too, where it's kind of been the issues that I thought was going to be the problem. But no, in all, he's held up on the boundary, and he's been great for them. And you hope he just keeps getting better every week. That's what we're all about in football. But no, he's been a smash hit so far.
I thought he had a pick 6 against Green Bay in the early game in the first quarter. They took it away from him. I didn't understand that, taking it away from him. But he every single week he's got better, and he's only given up 1 touchdown, which, by the way, wasn't his fault. It was Joyner's fault. But that's just my opinion. But he has really shut out the opposition. And everybody says, well, he's not going to dominate like he did in college and high school where he didn't give up a touchdown. He has given up 1 touchdown in 6 weeks in the NFL football as a rookie. And on the other side of the ball, they have DJ Reed, who hasn't given up anything. So they have arguably the 2 best corners, the two elite corners right now on their team. And now the defensive line's figuring out. And then your thoughts about Breece Hall. Are you surprised right now how dominant he's been and how dominant a lot of people thought he wasn't going to be coming out of college?
It's one of those things where I think we just kind of overthought everything. We went with old tendencies, right? I mean, Breece tested out of the world at the Combine. Some of us, we looked at that. In the Combine's one of those events you can kind of take it or leave it a lot of times because we play football in pads and helmets. And in the Combine, we're running around and we're in shorts and T-shirts. So there's some guys that carry pads better than other guys do, and they'll run faster in the 40 or whatever. But obviously that was not the case with Breece. He's looked great. I think the biggest thing with him is just the power-speed combination. At his size, we're not accustomed to seeing a guy who can move like he can. And we're not accustomed to seeing a guy who he's able to use his speed to power, that's typically something that you see in smaller running backs, guys that are smaller stature. That's what they do. But he does that really well. And then I think the last thing too is kudos to the Jets offensive line. I mean, that was a unit that we did not expect to see great things from this year. And they've held up pretty decently well so far. So I think all those things combined has helped him a lot at this point of the season. And you kind of wonder when you see Michael Carter out there, why is that guy even on the field right now? Because Breece has been that dominant. He's been that key. So, but yeah, I hope to see him get some 20, 30 carry games and see what he does and how he handles it.
I don't think he needs to. I don't think he needs to carry the ball 20, 30 times because you have Michael Carter who's touching the ball 15 times and he's still putting up decent numbers. I think it's only going to get better when they can transition both of those guys into the offense because I think the offense is still trying to figure out who they are. And that you were talking about the offensive line. That offensive line hasn't been healthy all season long. I mean, George Font was supposed to be the right tackle. He moved to left tackle. Then Max Mitchell moved to the right tackle position. They're both out. Then you get Dwayne Brown back where you paid him a significant amount of money. He has a hurt shoulder. He's playing with a hurt shoulder. You move Alijah Vera-Tucker, your star guard, to the tackle position. He's played unbelievable at the tackle position. And now Lakinson and then Herbig, which you brought in as a backup guard, he's been fantastic from the Eagles that they brought him in. And McGovern's been pretty good at the center position. So you're right, the offensive line's been better. But who would have thought that this beat-up offensive line in the last 3 weeks has been dominant?
Yeah, no, and so Alijah Vera-Tucker, he's interesting. He played left tackle at USC.
Yes, he did.
And I think there were a lot of people that liked him better at tackle than guard. I thought he was a better fit at guard just simply because, when you're playing tackle, you have to be quick, right? You have to move around. You have to have that lateral quickness, and I wasn't sure that he had it, especially after seeing him go up against Kayvon Thibodeau in the 2020 Pac-12 championship game. But no, he's held up really well there. And I think that's been the key is he's had experience at that position. And then you mentioned also Max Mitchell. This is a guy came out. He went through the Senior Bowl. I love this guy. Like I thought he was potentially going to be a starter by next year.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's exceeded those expectations. He's had to step in. He's played well. I think that they had a really good unit. They've got a really good coaching staff that's over the top of that. And that's what's got them running right now on fumes, I guess you could kind of say.
And look at the depth when he comes back. And when Font comes back, look at the depth you have on the offensive line. You can maneuver the offensive line. You could bring a fifth offensive lineman in some of the plays. I mean, this could be a very unique trend for the New York Jets that they have not had, and that's depth at that line.
Yeah, it's versatility. Versatility is the number one most important thing in the NFL because you've got 49 guys that you can have on an active day roster.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have to make those cuts, from the 53 and say, you're not playing today, you're not dressing, you want to have the most versatile guys that can play as many positions as possible. That's where Taysom Hill's made a living in the NFL. That's where, guys that are corners that can play safety, they make that too. And so that goes for offensive linemen too. The more offensive linemen that you can play all across the line, the more that you can put in the game at the same time, the better that you're going to be, especially in special situations.
So is there any draft class so far from what you graded as that are you surprised his play as well as it has and the reverse?
Josh Donaldson stinks, okay? I don't know why. They need to pull him out of this game. This guy can't hit anything. This guy's throwing it down the middle and say, come on, come and hit me, 96 miles per hour. And he is not even coming close. The guy sucks. Get him out of the game. He's horrible. Sorry.
So one draft class you think has been surprisingly good and surprisingly bad?
So surprisingly bad, I think, has been the Carolina Panthers, and some of that has obviously been to for unforeseen circumstances with Matt Corral going down with the injury, forcing they made the trade for Baker Mayfield to kind of try to fix that quarterback position. That hasn't helped too much, but they've had no help from their draft class, and we thought that there were a lot of guys that thought that Icky was going to be a great player, on that offensive line. Haven't seen it from him yet, so I don't like that. So I think the Panthers have been underwhelming at this point. Now, guys, honestly, I can't think of a draft class right now making a bigger impact on their team than the New York Jets right now, in all honesty. Like the shit that I came on here, can I say that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you could say it. God, that's fine.
Okay, so the shit that I talked when I came on here, last time about those certain players that we just mentioned and how they stepped up and they played really, really well and went through it. And everybody's making an impact, it seems like, except for Jermaine Johnson, which he's going to come on at some point as well.
Mm-hmm.
But they've been deep. They did a great job. The guys have developed there. And I don't think anybody has more impact rookies right now playing on the field than the New York Jets do.
It's pretty amazing. It really is. And like you said, Max Mitchell, who was playing out of this world, nobody would have thought that he was going to start as early as he did with the injuries that the Jets had. Mekhi Beckham was supposed to be starting right tackle. He was out before you know it. And then they lost Font as quick as he did. Nobody would have thought Max Mitchell was going to be as good as he has been. It's been very impressive for the New York Jets. And like you said, Jermaine Johnson's only playing one down. I mean, and he already has almost 2 sacks. If he actually plays more than one down on every single drive, maybe we see a better Jermaine Johnson. But right now, that defensive line's been so dominant, they're not going to do that. So Clemens has looked good too, by the way. He's looked fantastic when he does play too. So every single one of their rookies have played big for this team. And if they continue doing what they're doing, I don't know if they're a playoff team. And I predict that in a good year, they win 8 or 9 games in an AFC that's which was supposed to be really good. It's been very weak. So maybe something, happens and they win 10 games and they squeak into the playoffs. And who knows, with a young team, with the confidence, ask the Bengals, anything could happen.
I'm not so sure that the AFC is weak. I think you have so many great teams that are beating up on each other right now. I think once we get down to the end of the year, the top end, the records won't be as good as the top teams in the NFC. I think the Philadelphia Eagles sitting at 6-0 right now, as good as they've been, has been really a product of the lack of competition in the NFC right now. But, when you look at the Buffalo Bills, they're, 5-1. They dropped a game to Miami. Miami, when Tua Tagovailoa is on the field, is great. Baltimore has dropped a couple games that they shouldn't have,
right?
And one of them to Buffalo.
One against the Giants too.
Yeah, the Bengals coming off the Super Bowl, they're 3-3 right now too, and they couldn't beat the Ravens. So it's really a bunch of teams that are just really good and they're beating up on each other.